lace up those cleats and put on those mitts. It's time for another exciting edition of our Little Yankees podcast. Stepping up to the mic, it's the OLIP team.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome inside another brand spanking new episode of our Little Yankees podcast. We've been off. Happy Thanksgiving, folks. A happy belated Thanksgiving, of course, because it is about 5 days since Thanksgiving actually happened. But we are in episode 6. I am Julian Coltree alongside my compañeros, Josh Levin.
Always a pleasure to see you guys on our Tuesday
Absolutely.
night pod recording sessions.
Yes, and then the one and only Eric Ray Sepulveda. E-Ray, what's up?
What up? I got a mic now. I am ready to go.
Yeah, you don't want to tell the audience that for the last 5 weeks you weren't prepared, but I guess now you can let everybody know that you were a slacker for episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5.
These people need to know my daily updates. So yes, I am a slacker, and I'm going to continue to slack. But now I have a mic, and I feel official, and now I feel like I'm ready to pod, baby. This is do with a mic. Then I'll get the AirPods to work one day, but they don't need to know that either.
Yeah, so you got the mic. That's all that matters. Yeah, and he's still only halfway prered for what he needs to do. But we're getting to the point where he's almost there.
Kind of like the Yankees offense in October.
You're right, absolutely. How was you guys' Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was nice to get some time away and eat some really good food. How was your guys?
Jules?
Cat got your tongue, E-Ray?
What was up with that?
I don't know who was going to go. No, mine was good, but this was the first time actually that my mom decided not to cook. You know what? She deserves a break sometimes. And she was like, you know what, Eric? I'm not cooking, but I did tell her that she had to cook the Spanish rice. So she did do that, so that's good. But we catered from an Italian place, actually.
Oh.
This is literally the first time she's ever done this. It was just me and my mom, pretty small Thanksgiving this year, with those circumstances. But yeah, it was pretty delicious food. I ate a lot of Italian food. I ate ravioli, not on Thanksgiving the next day because there was so much food, but I ate ravioli for the first time in like 5 years.
Well, I thought you were about to say you had never had ravioli, and then I was just going to say, screw talking about the Yankees, because we have to talk about how you had never had ravioli before.
No,
I'm glad it was for the first time in 5 years.
Yeah. Still hits. It still slaps. So
yeah, it does. Ravioli's the best, man. And as the certified Italian on this Yankees podcast, I can say ravioli. It's one of the good ones. My Thanksgiving was good. Ate turkey, ate the trimmings, and had a pretty good time. Watched football.
Yep.
And did what everybody in America should have done, which was stay home and not go out and do all that stuff because of COVID. But it was fun. And I spent a lot of time, much like you, Josh, looking at old things that I had in my house that may or may not be worth money.
Yeah. I don't know if it's worth anything monetarily, but it's worth something to our memories, I'm sure.
Yep, absolutely. And for one, I know you and I both looked at Pokemon cards, and we're going on a bit of a tangent here, but I also had some baseball memorabilia, and I know you and I had the idea of hopefully in next episode, maybe having a little bit of a segment where we can kind of go in and show off some cool show and tell of some of the baseball signage and the autos and different plaques or different baseball cards and stuff that we have. That might be awesome. So that's for down the road, but at least something that could be exciting going forward.
Yeah. And, I continue to build a collection. I have a little bit of stuff here where I live and then some at my parents' house. So hopefully I can get some of that here and then we could show it to each other, and maybe E-Ray can join in one of these days. I don't know about that.
I have some baseball cards from, I think, like in 5th grade and 6th grade when everyone was collecting Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I never got into that phase, but I was collecting baseball cards. So I have like a binder full of baseball cards from like 2003 and 4. That's basically the last time I bought cards. So I mean, I know where the binder is, so I can participate.
You might have to look. You might have some lit cards. 2003, 2004.
Yeah, those are when the cards.
So 2004 was the last time. So that means the Red Sox killed your childhood. Is that what you're saying?
They did. Yeah, we don't have to talk about 2004 actually.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe you have an Aaron Boone card.
I hope not.
You don't know? You hope not. Well, we'll have to see. So that's something that we have some surprises hopefully coming up in the next couple of episodes, because I did say we were stalling, and that is because for those of you who have caught up with the podcast, the last couple of weeks, what we've pretty much been talking about is burying the Yankees for their ineptitude in the American League Division Series, once again not winning a World Series, and then going around the horn to take them and trash them, the entire team. So we've kind of not run out of ideas, but we've hit the slog, so to speak, of the MLB offseason. And no one's really making moves except for a few that we will kind of go over. And outside of that, we're at a point where there are a couple of things that we got to touch on, but there's a lot of room for us to kind of, I guess, freelance. Now, that's not the word I'm looking for, but spit free, whatever it is that my dumb brain is trying to come up with right now that I can't think of. So first things first, I figured since we didn't do an episode last week, we obviously were off for the holiday. It kind of bears repeating that episode 5 was 2 weeks ago at this point. We did miss some things. So let's kind of dive into some of the storylines and some of the different things that I guess we'd like to talk about, a little bit of a recap, so to speak. And the first one does not involve the Yankees. However, it involves a former Yankee, and it involves a Yankee who is a free agent. And that is that literally the day after we recorded episode 5 of this podcast, we found out that Robinson Cano, former Yankees second baseman, of course, and a guy who was on track for the Hall of Fame, I think all three of us would agree, tested positive again for steroids, and now will miss the entire 2021 Major League Baseball season, which is big news for the Mets because, one, they don't have to pay him, and 2, that frees up second base, which 3 leads to the point of how it currently affects the Yankees, which is everybody's talking about Steve Cohen and his big, beautiful money. Might they be players for DJ LeMahieu?
Yeah, well, I think first to start, talk about Robinson Cano a little bit, because this is now his second positive performance-enhancing drug test, and in a short amount of time too, because I believe the first one was in 2018. So it's unfortunate because, like you said, when this guy left the Yankees after 2013, he looked like he was going to go to the Hall of Fame, well on his way to 3,000 hits, maybe going to become the greatest second baseman in the history of the game, at least, if not the best, one of the best. But now, I mean, that's derailed, and he's pushing 40. So by the time he comes back in 2021, you're going to really seriously wonder, what does this guy have left in the tank, if anything? Sorry, 2022, I should say. Yep. What does this guy have left in the tank, if anything? And you just think about what could have been, it makes you wonder what was happening when he was a Yankee. Were there things going on that we don't know about? We don't.
He did hang out with A-Rod.
Well, I was going to say we don't really have to get into. We don't have to get into who his two best friends on the team were, A-Rod and Melky. So that obviously puts some questions in the air. But yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate to think about what has happened to his career in the years since he left the Yankees, because he was productive in Seattle, but it was Seattle. They weren't making the playoffs. Nobody really paid attention or saw what was going on. And, now with the Mets, it's just been a disaster between the fact that they traded a top prospect to get him. He hasn't been the same player, and now a positive test. It actually works out for them, like you said, because they don't have to pay him this year, and that may be the end of it for him. Who knows? But
that trade really will go down in the eons of, and I don't want to rag on the Mets, but I'm going to do it anyway right now. That will go down in the eons of, at least in the past 15 years, terrible trades because of how bad Edwin Diaz has been, and especially if everybody that the Mets had to give up just have insane major league careers, or at the very least all-star level major league careers.
Yeah, I mean, if Kalenic is as good as they say he is as a major leaguer when he gets the chance, it's a disastrous trade, because Cano is a complete nothing, and Diaz, you don't trade an all-star caliber outfielder for a closer, especially when the closer doesn't really pitch that well, at least in the first season of the deal. So,
to be honest, I actually think this trade is a blessing for the Mets now, because as you said it, Jules and Josh, I mean, that's a lot of money that they don't have to pay the guy now. And if you use that money and the Mets look like they're going to. It's all about Cohen and his money. If they use that, that's like 20 million plus extra money. If they use that now to steal DJ LeMay from the Yankees for Bauer, for Realmuto, for Springer, if they can get an extra and Cano had a pretty good year last year, to be honest. He was actually pretty good on the field offensively. But I actually, if Kalanick and all these guys, and Diaz has been a disaster, yeah, Kalanick's probably going to be pretty good. But if the Mets can get another free agent with that money and it helps them win now, I think in the end, this trade could honestly be a blessing. If they do win a World Series, say, in the next 3 to 5 years, and Kalanick, yeah, he's great in like 5-10 years, but they win a World Series, this trade could be a blessing. If I'm a Mets fan, I'm ecstatic. I think all the Mets fans we know, they are very happy about this, that they now have free money basically to use elsewhere. And if we're Yankee fans like we are on this pod, we're a little worried now. Because, yes, we know the Mets were going to have all this money. But now, as you said, they do have Jeff McNeil at second, but they have other positions. They can use DJ LeMahieu at third. They have this money now that they can kind of use for LeMahieu to try to pry away from the Yanks. And as a Yanks fan, I'm a little worried now that the Mets, are now in play, even bigger than they were before.
So
sorry. No, go ahead.
No, you go first.
What I was going to say is, I think obviously, the extra money, it could be towards LeMahieu, but it would make, in my opinion, not as a Met fan, so I don't know, maybe they don't agree, but they have a lot of guys on their team that play out of position. Jeff McNeil played the outfield. I think it would make more sense to move McNeil to second base, which is his natural position. Have JD Davis play third. You sign Springer, that fills your outfield hole because then you have Conforto and Nimmo flanking him. In my opinion, that extra money should be used for George Springer and then another addition, whether that's a pitcher or maybe JT Realmuto. But maybe if Springer signs elsewhere, they decide, all right, well, we can sign LeMahieu. We can move him to third or keep him at second and figure out everything else around him, kind of like what the Yankees did when they signed him, which was, well, we know he's a good player. We don't really have a position right now, but we can figure it out on the fly. And it ended up, solving itself.
I agree. First things first, I was making faces during the entirety of E-Ray saying that trade would be a blessing because there's no way trading for dude on the other side of 35 would ever be a blessing, no matter how much steroids he takes to miss 1 year, because they could have just not traded for him. And then the last 2 years didn't have to pay him what they now don't have to pay him this year. So yeah, I don't think that just by virtue of him, putting a needle in himself, all of a sudden it's like, wow, great. Good thing we gave up Kalanick for this 1 year that we don't have Robinson Cano.
And if Cohen bought the team, they still could have had the money to sign somebody, another all-star.
But all I'm saying is that it could become a blessing.
No, it's never going to be.
It depends.
It's a loss.
If I don't know, if they use that money, and yes, you said they have the money to use. They don't need Cano's free money. But I'm just saying, if for some reason they weren't going to use it, this is more opportunity for them to use it elsewhere.
If I keep riling you up, I feel like you're gonna flip on me. But blessing should be used for what happened to Cano this year. That is a blessing. The trade will never be a blessing because
maybe I need a different word. Maybe I'll look in a dictionary or something.
No, blessing's the right word. It's just the scenario
to the Cano positive test. Yeah.
It is a blessing that Robinson Cano decided to use steroids this year because now the Mets can put themselves in a situation in which, as you guys both laid out perfectly, will either allow them to spend that extra $20+ million on George Springer or Trevor Bauer or whoever it is that they want. If it is maybe DJ LeMahieu, then that gives them the opportunity. And to that point about the trade, and not to rag on you, Ray, but now I have to, they could have just moved Jeff McNeil to second base if Robinson Cano wasn't there. So, ultimately, this trade wound up really handcuffing them, I think, for 2 years. And now they're seeing the dividend pay a little bit because of the stupidity of Robinson Cano. And that's obviously what the blessing is at the end of the day.
What's also a blessing?
What?
That the Yankees didn't give him that big contract now.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be honest,
but what wasn't a blessing? signing Jacoby Ellsbury instead.
Yeah.
That's also true. Yep. And it is funny. I will say, back when they didn't sign him, I was like, geez, the Yankees are really starting to be frugal. And fast forward, that was what, 2000 and
It was after
12?
2013.
2013. So
2013?
2013, December 2013, he signed. Yeah.
7 years later, they're still frugal. Well, no,
No, they're not.
I guess
They're
not.
frugal.
Yeah, that's unfair. That's unfair. Now they are, though.
They
Now
made the
they're
right
frugal.
decision. They made
But-
the right decision.
They did. But you're right that they ultimately shot themselves in the other foot by
Yeah.
signing Jacoby Ellsbury. And, the signings they made, not to like harp on this, but I guess we have time to go on a little bit of a tangent there. That year, I feel like in hindsight's 2020, obviously, but Beltran and McCann and Ellsbury were really just sort of like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound type
Oh yeah.
signings
Yeah.
for
Sure.
what
Oh,
they really
God,
needed to
yeah.
do.
Yeah, I mean
I love
McCann.
Beltran.
I like the McCann signing a lot because they really needed a catcher, and he was one of the best, and he was obviously the best available. But I mean, Beltran was what? He was 35, 36 at the time, and the Ellsbury one never really made sense.
Mhm.
It did
It
not.
that was the years where it was kind of like, where are they going? What are they doing?
And everybody
But
and their mother got hurt that year.
Yeah. Again, I mean, we're talking about the Yankees, so of course.
Yep.
But
That's
yeah.
true. But this was even before you got the injury-prone guys there. Wasn't that the year that Jeter came back from his ankle injury and then he wound up only
Yeah,
playing?
He got hurt again.
Yeah,
he hit a home run
On his first game back,
debut,
right?
Of
Yeah.
course, typical Jeter fashion, and then he got hurt again, and then that
Yep.
was it. The thing that I think about 2013, as Josh was saying, like they needed to sign McCann, is just that Chris Stewart was our starting catcher.
Yeah.
Like they didn't re-sign Russell Martin, who I loved, by the way. He was like
And he had a good career after that.
He did. I think he went to the Blue Jays after.
Toronto, yeah.
And
He
Pittsburgh.
killed us too. And Pitts, yeah. But Chris Stewart was just like seeing him for like 60 games was awful. Or
Yeah.
more than that. It was probably more than that, to be honest.
Yep.
But yeah, 2013. They won 85 games. Can you believe that? Jesus.
That to me is the thing that really like blows my mind. And
Joe
we were
Girardi,
talking about this the other day, Josh, when we were thinking when you brought up how insane Alfonso Soriano was when he came back after that stint that he had in Chicago to come back to the Yankees. And it's just like those teams were mediocre at best, but still
yeah.
never finished under 500 any of those years, which is
Yeah.
impressive in its own right, even though they did not make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean they weren't good at all, but they were playing like somewhat meaningful baseball into September. Even though we knew they weren't going to be a playoff team, the fact that they were still even alive in the wild card race speaks
Mediocre
volumes.
85 win Yankees, greater than World Series winning Red Sox. I mean, Red Sox were what? The worst team in baseball, like 2 out of 5 of those years, 3 out of 5 of those years. Yankees never finished 500. Yeah, they got a World Series, but throw that
Yeah.
away because that team
But they got
once
it,
in a
though.
lifetime. So
They got it though.
I'm totally kidding. No,
I know.
it's a complete joke. But that was a nice little tangent for us to go on. So I think the consensus for us would be, do we think the Yankees or the Mets sign DJ LeMahieu? I know all three of us don't think they really should. Do you think they will?
I don't think they will. This doesn't make me the Cano thing doesn't make me more nervous about losing DJ. I was already nervous about that.
Yeah.
I'm still nervous about it. This doesn't add or change anything at all whatsoever for me. So I don't think they will sign him. I don't think they should. And we'll see what happens, I guess.
I'm more nervous, I think, about the team up north because we've seen their name, especially now for like Springer, which doesn't involve us, but just seeing them, like seeing the Blue Jays name in the reports saying that they're these free agents is kind of making, and especially that if the Blue Jays get LeMahieu, we're going to have to face LeMahieu 19.
Yep.
Like if he goes to the Mets, yeah, it sucks, but we're not going to face LeMahieu.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If he goes to the Blue Jays, that's 19 games a year against us, and that's a disaster. So just keep LeMahieu home, keep him home, bring him home. Yeah. Just come on, DJ, come on, Brian, do the right thing.
I feel like with the Blue Jays, it's kind of like underrated because, yeah, they don't spend, as much as the Yankees, but they're not the Rays. They do go out there and get big names and they do stuff. So,
well, what you like about it is they have this core that's so young and talented, and they're saying, this is our window. Our window is the next 3 or 4 years. So whatever we're missing, we better go get it now, which I like.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's a good philosophy to have.
Yeah, it would be crazy if a team in the Bronx did that, right? Absolutely, going out
You
there and
go to
adding.
that Blue Jays lineup. I mean, that's a pretty potent lineup, to be honest. They're a pretty good offensive lineup, as you said.
I mean, they
core.
scored what 18 runs against us in that one game.
Oh man,
They scored what? It was a 10 in an inning or 12 in an inning. Forget.
Yep.
Our
And
group
the
chat
real-
was-
memory.
we were
question
fired
is-
up in that inning, huh? That
Oh
group
my
chat.
God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we talked
that was
about this last episode on the podcast when we were
Yeah,
doing
we
the
keep talking
Adam
about
Martino.
it. It's in our memories.
Yeah, you're never gonna forget anything like something like that.
No,
Yeah.
and the face that Adam Ottavino had on when he was just getting absolutely shelled, throwing
Yeah.
BP to those bums.
Or Boone,
he was
just
the bum. He was the bum.
Boone, his head and his arm
Yep. Mhm.
in the dugout, just
And
didn't know what he was looking at.
Yep. And I will say credit to them. They went on that run after that.
They
where
did.
They won, I think it was like 11 in a row, and
Yeah.
they broke
And
that
they lost.
home run
Yeah.
record. And then they wound up finishing the season with the tails
Up
between
and down,
their
up
legs
and down.
before, you know. And so that's what it was.
Roller coaster ride.
We talked about guys who we think might sign elsewhere. One guy that we all wanted to sign with the Yankees, who wound up signing during the time that we were away, is Charlie Morton. And I know all three of us were bummed about it when we read about it. He winds up going to the Atlanta Braves, and it seemed as though the reports afterwards sort of said that it was either he was staying in Tampa or he was going to Atlanta. Those were the only two teams that he wanted to go pitch for. That's at least what the report said. But it is bittersweet to know that the Yankees could not lure him to come be a starter for them when he has killed them. And now they won't have to see him unless they face him in the World Series because he's in Atlanta, not in Tampa, but still a bummer.
Yeah, I mean this guy seemed to make so much sense. You know, they needed another front of a rotation starter. He's available, he's proven. But, you know, the reports indicate that he wanted to stay where he was or not go much further. And last time he was a free agent, it was the same thing. He wanted to play in Florida, in Tampa specifically, because he lives there. So if that's the – plus he's getting close to retirement age. So he probably just wants to stay, you know, close to home. So if that's the case, then there's nothing the Yankees could have done. You know,
And a 1 year,
I mean, he could have had
$15
spring
million.
training there, but and 1 year, $15 million. I don't think the Yankees are swimming in that end of the pool right now. I don't think I don't think that's happening. That's not happening. So if that's what the price was going to be, regardless of where, like geographically where you want it to be, there's no way.
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
If the Yankees weren't gonna get him, I'm gonna use the word. You know what? The theme of tonight is blessing. Then it is a blessing that he's not on the Rays anymore. To be honest, that if he wasn't gonna be on the Yankees, then go to the National League, go to the NL East. We'll worry about you. Hopefully, I want to worry about him if the Yankees actually make the World Series, but that's for months down the line. But yeah, it's a bummer that Morton's not in the Yankees rotation, but he's out of the Rays, and so I guess I'll take that.
Yep, and it's funny because the third thing that we can kind of catch up on is the dismantling of the Rays, because there's a rumor that came out last week, which is the Rays, as they so tend to do, are interested in potentially unloading Blake Snell. Obviously, we were gotten used to seeing this with them, whether it was Chris Archer or James Shields and many of their aces
David
before
Price.
this. Yep, David Price. As soon as their guys get to the point in which they're going to get the big payday because they are good, they ship them somewhere else and get a haul of prospects back that all become great, and then the other guy stinks. But for the Yankees' purposes, Blake Snell getting out of the division, a guy who was always been good against them, and of course sort of incited the rivalry of this year with him saying that we love to beat the Yankees. I would not be disappointed if he went somewhere else in the National League or even somewhere out in the AL West, as long as it's not Houston.
He's going to get traded. I mean, that's happening. It may not happen this offseason, but it will happen, because if you look at it, he's going to be 28 next year. He's going to be earning $11 million, and then the next 2 seasons, he's going to go up to 13 and then 16.6. They are not paying him in 2022 and 2023 at those numbers. So he's going to be traded, and they're going to get a lot for him because he's under control for a while.
The prospects they get back will be good because
exactly. This is what the Rays do.
But I just want to say this though. This is what they do, and it's not a surprise. And if you're a fan of the Rays, it comes with the territory. It just is what it is. It's lame it's lame. And I get that they had to do it and it works for them. I mean, we're the team that lost to them, so we understand. But it's lame. And this guy won a Cy Young 2 years ago, and he's in the prime of his career. He's one of the best lefties in the game, one of the best in the game, period. And he's not going to see through the prime of his career with the team that developed him and brought him up. And I just, as a fan, imagine if that was happening to the Yankees. Imagine if we were sitting here saying, oh, yeah, I mean, Judge is about to get paid a lot. They're going to trade him because they just can't afford to do it. They can't afford to pay him. Or, any of the guys in the past that we've fallen in love with. DJ LeMahieu, not even a consideration to re-sign him because they can't afford it. It sucks.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, though, because, we're thinking as a Yankee fan, right? And we're saying that sucks and I would be livid. But as we were saying, the Rays, this is what they do. So I actually would like to hear from – we don't really know any Rays fan except that guy that keeps freaking giving me stupid BS on Twitter. But I would like to hear from them, saying, are you okay with this? Because like you said, this is – I feel like as a Rays fan, you kind of expect this. And like Jules was saying, they're going to get guys that are going to be good anyway. They got those. They got Glasnow. And they're pieces that help them now. So honestly, if they traded Snell, they would probably still be competitive in the division, still competing for an AL East, AL, championship. So yeah, I would hate it, but we're thinking as Yankee fans. So that is curious to think though, how Rays fans would see Blake Snell, because he's been there literally from the beginning, as you said.
I guess for me, trying to think about it abstractly, the thing that I would say is they haven't won. And then their core, which is really good right now, good enough that it got them to the World Series, in a year they'll be like, all right, well, let's just reset the clock almost. And they're good at doing it. There's no layover. And that's the thing. But it's like, as good as you are for doing it, they are consistently, when they're bad, and I use bad in air quotes, the third best team in the division, and that doesn't get you anything. So it's like, how hyped could you be as a Rays fan, knowing that once every, at this point, it's 12 years, because 2008 was the last time they made it. Once every 12 years, you get the opportunity to finally get over the hump. And outside of that, you play either average or below average baseball because you refuse to pay your players. So I agree with Josh, honestly, that it is lame. And if I was a fan, I would be kind of annoyed by that, because as awesome as these guys that get back are, and the Rays get as many awesome prospects as any of them, and their bullpen was killer because of how many great arms they got from whatever one of these deals it was. Go down the line for their ace that they traded. They got great guys for it. But it's like, at a certain point, it's got to be more than just getting great prospects. They're the other way around. It's trade your prospects for the great guy who's going to win your World Series. They're trade your great guy for the prospects who are going to get you a good team 3 years from now.
Yeah, I think as a fan, something that obviously we root for, to steal from Jerry Seinfeld, we root for the laundry. Mm-hmm. But it's more than that, though, because we fall in love with the players. You know, the reason why I'm a Yankee fan is because, well, my dad is, but I fell in love with Derek Jeter when I was a kid. And that has been like the constant thread throughout my life as a Yankee fan. It carries from him all the way to where we are now. It's not just about the team. It's about the players too. And you need some consistency in your roster. As a fan, you want to know, these are my guys. You know, I'm a Knicks fan. They have a new roster every year. It's a little different because they suck, and it's self-imposed that they suck. They can't get in their own way. It's not a Rays situation where they don't have money. The Knicks have a new roster every year, and it's hard to get excited because you just say, like, okay, who is actually on this team that's going to be here for a long time that I can invest my time into and become interested in them. And that's what you hope for as a fan. And I think as a Rays fan,
think of dynasty teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why are they good? It's not because they win, but they win because they have players.
Exactly. Think about any, the Pats, the Spurs, the Yankees, any of
96 or 90s Bulls.
The Bulls, the Warriors, any of these teams that win a lot, in a short amount of time, they have the same group of players throughout that entire stretch. I get it. You know, if I was a Rays fan, I would understand, okay, this is just what it is, but I wouldn't be happy about it at all. And if I'm a Rays fan reading that, oh, they're going to trade Blake Snell just after we won the pennant, I'm sitting there thinking like, come on, you know, like, is there one guy that we can just keep?
Other than
And then
Evan
you
Longoria.
could trade everyone else and just let there be one person that we can build around and consistently know that this guy's on the team. That's
It's funny. If I asked you who that was, and granted it was Evan Longoria, like, 5-6 years ago, it's probably Kevin Kiermaier, which is, I'm sorry. I don't want to, take a dump on anybody's favorite player or something like that, but Kevin Kiermaier being your star player is kind of hilarious if you think about it.
It is, and I can tell you, Matt Vasgersian, the announcer, is an Oakland A's fan. I don't know if he still is, but he was an Oakland A's fan, and I've heard him say, even now as a broadcaster, I've heard him talk about how he just wishes, like when Josh Johnson got traded, he said, like, I want to just buy my nephew a jersey and know that this jersey is going to be, a player that's going to be on the team for a while.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that other fans of the A's and the Rays, teams like that in those similar situations, feel the same way, where it's like, can we just, have a couple of people that we know, these
you guys
guys
know you're Jets fans.
Yeah, exactly. All it is you want something to be invested in, with a franchise, whether that's one player or 5 players, whatever, but you just want somebody to know, you want to know this is our guy. And Kevin Kiermaier, I guess, is their guy. But
I mean, realistically, when have you guys bought a Jets jersey that you actually got more than 3 seasons of use out of? Maybe 5 seasons. 5 seasons of use.
So mine's a trick because I got a Darrelle Revis jersey, but then he got traded.
Me too.
Literally that off season, but he came back. So it's kind of, so I did get actually 3 seasons, I think.
Yeah, I'll accept Revis. He's like an all-time great for them.
I thought when I got my Jamal Adams jersey, I really thought he was going to stay here because last year going into last year, I thought like we had a lot of promise for the Jets, I felt like. And then Darnold got mono and stuff, and then it kind of went to. But yeah, then Jamal Adams
injury
left.
prone.
I have a Dustin Keller jersey. We don't have to talk about that one.
Me too. You're right. We're on the same page here.
Wow. I have a Santana Moss jersey. He got traded for Lavernius Coles. The next – I have such a bad jersey curse, man. Santana Moss jersey's lit, though. I love that guy.
We've never really gone full in depth on our fanhoods outside of being a Yankee fan. So, you'll hear us bring it up over the course of several episodes as we keep on doing this. But – sadly for Josh and E-Ray, they have the Jets stank on them, so to speak. Well, I'm a Giants fan, though they fucking suck now too. So they're leading the division at the point that we record this podcast on December 1st. They are a team that is first place in the division.
They're going to
and then all 3 of our basketball teams kind of stink, though Josh's stinks a lot more than
E-Ray's going to take exception to that, but we'll see what happens with those.
He's a Nets fan, and the Nets are trash, and the Sixers weren't trash, but then they were trash, but they're back because of Daryl Morey. So that's what's happening on that front. But we've gotten off the tangent of the Yankees, and we've just kind of gone on a little free for all. But I've liked it. This has been fun. It's been cozy, and I've kind of liked the direction that we've gone. But there is an important thing we have to discuss, given the fact that tomorrow, which would be December 2nd, on the day we're recording this podcast, and might be a different day depending on when you're listening. And let me note while I do this in the middle of my transition that we are now on Apple Podcasts. We are now on Spotify. We are on SoundCloud, and we are on YouTube. So you can catch up on old episodes on all those places. But no matter what day you are listening, tomorrow for us recording is the deadline for non-tender and tendering players, which is actually news this year for the Yankees.
Yes, it is. I think across baseball, you may see some, surprises because of the pandemic. Some teams may just decide not to tender contracts to certain players, but I guess we could just start with the big one, right? Gary Sanchez is up. He's up for he's either going to be tendered a contract tomorrow or not. I think there's a 99.9% chance he'll be tendered, but they still have to go through the formality of doing
and
that.
the rumors have been swirling that maybe he might not be. So I feel.
I'll let you go, Jules.
I was just going to say, I feel like it's a foregone conclusion, but here's the thing. Sometimes I like to say outlets like to make up rumors, especially this time when there's nothing else going on. But there has been so much talk with Gary Sanchez and what he might do going into this season and just how bad he was. And now you factor in the fact that he's down in the Dominican League trying to get right and stuff like that. It's like he should be back. And I say that as somebody who has had some vehement feelings about Gary Sanchez recently, but he should be back. But that doesn't necessarily mean he will be, even if it is a 0.01% chance that he doesn't get tendered.
Yeah, like I said, I'm on the same boat. I definitely expect him to be here. I expect him to be in the lineup next year. I just don't see him. I don't agree with releasing him outright either. So I expect Gary. I saw this on my timeline earlier today where I think it was the New York Post. I think it might have been a Sherman article, if you guys saw it, with about Gary Sanchez. And this quote is what they said. This fits a pattern in which the Yanks seem to be trying to talk themselves into Sanchez as much as sell him to reporters and the public. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what they're doing.
Completely agree with that.
That's like spot on.
They've been doing that for a while now.
And his value's rock bottom. So at this point, you really want to hype him up. See what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way they release him. Because, for one, Cashman is too smart of a GM to just look at him and say, yeah, we're just going to let you go. Because for one thing, he'll get picked up immediately. We've seen the talent. You have to assume that the talent this isn't a Space Jam situation. The talent didn't get sucked out of him. So it's still there somewhere. They just have to figure out how to unlock it. And that's what they're going to try to do. Cashman's not going to lose him for nothing. He's either going to keep him on the team. He'll be the opening day catcher, or he's going to trade him for something that he thinks can be good either now or sometime down the line in the future. He is not going to be released. It would be a foolish thing to do, but obviously it's a hot topic. So that's why it's going to get, talked about in the papers and such. But E-Ray, that quote is 100% accurate. The way they talk about him in the media, whether that's anonymous quotes or even just the way Aaron Boone speaks about him in press conferences, you can tell 100% that they are trying to talk themselves into him just as much as they are trying to talk the reporters into him and the fans as well by proxy.
And as somebody who, as I said, has not loved Gary Sanchez the last couple of years because of how bad he has been, and he has been bad for 3 years, it is one thing to go into this season with Gary Sanchez as your catcher, hoping for the most. It's another thing to just cut him loose and go into the season with any catcher not named JT Realmuto. And if you did that, that would be a bad idea, because ultimately 100%. That's the only catcher who you can look at and say, realistically, this guy is a super upgrade over what I currently have. And we'll get into some names after we kind of discuss this, the tendering and the deadline tomorrow, that might potentially be who could be the guy who lights a fire under Gary's ass, so to speak. We talked about Yadier Molina on a past episode, but there's some other names out there. But realistically, those guys would play maybe 80 games, 90 games. Gary's going to be the guy they try and look at for at least one more year to try and get right, as frustrating as that might be. But I do want the guy, and this is when we'll get into the conversation after the fact, who, if Gary isn't the guy, at least replaces him well. And you wouldn't have that if you don't have Gary on the roster, I don't think.
Yeah, no, the way it is with that position across the league, there's so few catchers who you would look at and be like, that's a guy I want on my team. The fact that Gary is in that conversation after the past few years just tells you about the position across the league. JT Realmuto is a free agent. He's the guy that you would say, yes, I will scrap my plans with Gary Sanchez and I will move along to somebody else. But again, that is not happening.
Especially now with the way the Yankees spend money.
Exactly. That's the reason it's not happening. So we can forget, any other excuses.
I would say not to kind of break down free agents this early, but he seems like he's a lock to go to the Mets at this point. They're the only team that can spend money. And that report came out recently that the Phillies were, $2 billion in debt or whatever it was because of how bad coronavirus affected them without the fans and things like that. So it's, at this point, only team that really needs a catcher and is flushed with cash seems like the Mets. So kind of seems like he's kind of ripe to go to New York, just not in the Bronx.
Isn't that crazy though that the Phillies gave up a lot of pieces to get Realmuto, and now they can't even. I mean, of course, like you said, like no one expected the pandemic to happen, but still, that this team doesn't have the money. I think they were talking about Realmuto getting 7 years, over $200 million. So that is a lot of money, and I really just only expect the Mets, but we'll see. I just think back to Gary Sanchez that a majority of Yankee fans are just so done with him, and we're done too. Like, if you put a poll up there on Twitter and they said just to release him, you probably see 95% say release him. Just because you're fed up with him, though, doesn't mean you just trash him, though. Literally don't offer him a contract for nothing. Yeah. I would like to say we're smart Yankee fans, and we realize shouldn't how it should be handled. So Gary Sanchez should get a contract tomorrow. He's going to be on the team, and hopefully we'll see, like you said, with the other free agent catchers, if they can sign someone else and, fix something. Something needs to be done. He'll hopefully have, a full season this year if everything goes to plan next year. He only had 60 games, but I was going to make a joke, Josh, when you said before it's not a Space Jam situation. I was going to say, I don't know, did you see Carson Wentz on Monday night? Maybe talent can disappear. You just never know. But I expect Gary to stay.
Just to play off that point, I don't know what the plot of Space Jam 2 is, but it would be interesting if, and obviously this is my formal submission to you, LeBron, if you were listening to our podcast, rather than go the traditional route and just steal like KD and Kyrie's powers and, everybody on the Nets.
No, they can steal those powers.
Yeah, maybe go cross sport. Gary Sanchez, Carson Wentz. Who's another guy who's just fallen off recently? Has been absolutely terrible. I don't know, but I'm trying to. But either way, that's what it should be. That is my formal submission to LeBron. That
it would make for an interesting movie.
Space Jam 2 is cross-wide sports as opposed to just the NBA, which is, at the end of the day, I'm already annoyed that they're just repeating Space Jam. But it is.
I love it.
Yeah,
I'm in too.
I'm a big Space Jam mark. I had the duffel bag. I had the comforter. I still do.
The original Space Jam was good, but how good is a second Space Jam gonna be?
Oh, it's gonna be awful, but I'm here for it. I love it. I'm here for it.
I respect that.
I agree.
Respect it.
But anyway, just one last point is, I guess we'll get into some of the names that maybe the Yankees could bring in alongside Gary.
Yeah.
I think so. Now that we basically we know without knowing it for sure, but the Realmuto thing is dead. That dream didn't really last very long. The best way to go about solving this is to have somebody else that you can feel somewhat good about playing if Gary is bad. The reason why, this has gone on, they liked Austin Romine as a backup. They like Higgy as a backup, but they wouldn't want those guys being everyday players. You have to think about what it took for Higgy to be the main catcher in the playoffs. Think about all the things that had to happen for that to occur. Gary had to be as bad as he was, and Higgy had to be as good with Garrett Cole as he was in order for that to unfold. If the Yankees had a backup who was, possibly good enough to play every day on another team, you feel a lot better about that catching situation, because if Gary performs like he did in 2020, you just go to the other guy and you say, all right, it's your job. You take us as far as you can go. If it's Higgy again as the backup, we're going to be in for the same ride that we were in. We just have to hope for better results.
Yeah. Which brings us to a great point, which is the one name outside of Yadier Molina, who we've kind of already discussed on this show, the one name that really sprung up today and yesterday as far as potential players that the Yankees could pursue, as a catching option to do what Josh sort of said there, which is split time with Gary and then also step in flawlessly if they need to be, and that is James McCann. And last year, McCann had a really good year for a catcher. Batted 289. He had 7 homers, 28 hits. He only had 97 at-bats, so he didn't do it 100 at-bats, but he still got hits. He still was able to get on base. He was still able to do his job. And from what people said on that White Sox staff, people, the young staff that they had there really liked pitching to him. So kind of gives you that sort of situation that if the Yankees sign this guy, they go out there and they get James McCann for whatever it is they got to pay for him, that we would have no problem if Gary bats what he batted last year, 147 or whatever it is, just saying, all right, you're done. McCann's the starting catcher now. You'll come in and catch once or twice a week, maybe DH a little bit.
I think this is the kind of move that they need to seriously consider making if McCann is in for that kind of role, because he would come here knowing that he's probably not going to play as much as he has in the past few years. He wouldn't be the everyday catcher unless there was an injury or just poor results again from Sanchez. But a move like this is something that lights a fire under Gary, and just for the team, you feel a lot better knowing that you have somebody reliable to turn to in case something goes bad again. So, I mean, this is for me somewhat of a no-brainer as long as McCann is willing to do it,
And that's what makes it so tricky, because think of how many teams probably going into this offseason, and we named a couple, and obviously the Mets are there, the Phillies are there, just locally speaking, that need a catcher and probably would pay him, maybe not as much as they'd pay JT Realmuto, but if the Phillies gave him a 4-year deal that was the money that he wanted and he knew he was going to be the starting catcher there, that's what makes it so tricky. But, that's just kind of me, playing off of your point, Josh.
That's the thing. So McCann made $5.4 million last year, right? So and the White Sox, I mean, they're locked up with catcher. So that's why they didn't want to re-sign him this year. But you expect McCann probably to get maybe $8 million, $9 or something, whatever he's going to get. With the Yankees now, if they do offer Gary Sanchez a contract, he's going to make with arbitration, 6? Are the New York Yankees, who apparently is the team that lost the most money with COVID, and they have other areas where they need to address. Catcher is one of them, but they do have other concerns. Is that really the amount of money that you want to lock up with 2 catchers? I do agree that it's a no-brainer that I would like a guy like McCann to be on this squad and to hopefully light a fire with Gary, but they're both will take turns taking positions, right? But are the Yankees really going to lock $14 million, $15 million into 2 catchers when they need to re-sign DJ LeMahieu? They need to fill out their rotation. That's what I'm just thinking about. And if I'm us, do I want that? Do I want them to? Because we have other priorities, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I had the same thought too, because I was looking at his salary from 2020, and now I'm looking at MLB trade rumors predicted he would get a 2-year, $20 million deal from the Phillies. So if 10 million is what it would, 10 million annually is the range, I don't know if the Yankees are going to go $16 million to the catching position.
Yeah.
When Higgy proved to be a capable backup, he's not arbitration eligible yet. So that is a good point. And does that hamstring them? Probably.
Yeah,
it does. My only worry is this team is so injury prone that we saw last year Higgy could not play a full season. And then you start getting to the Eric Kratzes and these guys who really later on down the line were not going to be any vast improvement over Gary. And I think at this point, unless Gary really just has a renaissance season, maybe this is because, as you guys know, I'm the most sour on him, but unless he has a renaissance season, goes out there and hits 267 with 30 homers and 100 RBIs again, then they need something at the catcher's position that will be at a minimum lockdown defense, 2 250 batting average plus. I would say even maybe a 260 batting average plus. And, you know, a lack of unawareness. And I personally would invest in McCann at that price tag. But like I said, I'm the person who is the most unenamored at this point with Gary, and honestly believe that you can give him another shot. But to give him another shot with Higgy just being the failsafe is a poor logistical decision.
I agree that, you know, that's basically doing the same thing again and expecting different results. So that's insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would go that far, but I mean, I tend to agree with
It's
you.
a step away.
Because, you know, how many times do you have to see the movie before you realize that you already know the ending, you know?
Yep.
This is what has happened with Gary Sanchez for most of his career now. And to expect that to change at this point in his development is probably not wise. And then to not safeguard it any differently than you have in the past, also not wise. But then you talk about the money issues. So if it's going to cost you $10 million to pay your backup catcher while your starting catcher is making $6 million, you're trying to re-sign your MVP caliber second baseman. You need pitching. You need bullpen help. You need depth in the infield. It's maybe not the wisest $10 million you can spend. But in a perfect world where money isn't an issue, yes, you know, that is what you do. But here we are, pandemic, it's an issue.
I think prioritizing wise, I would everything is below DJ LeMahieu for me. That's what they have to do first. But I am somewhat interested in saying that as far as shoring up some of the bench positions are concerned, that the catcher spot would be relatively high for me because of what we've seen previously. I still obviously would say, look, if you said to me the Yankees were sticking with Higgy, but they were getting DJ back, they were signing Michael Brantley, and they were getting some decent arm for their rotation, then at that point I think I would have to say, okay, I accept that. But if what it comes down to is that they're signing DJ and then not really doing much else because of the financials, then I have that problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way as you. I just think I'm thinking more. I feel like I'm thinking more along the lines of how they're thinking in the front office right now.
No, I agree.
And I mean, listen.
I mean, it makes perfect logistical sense.
Yeah, I agree with you that doing the same thing again and hoping that it just works out a little bit better may not be the wisest thing to do. But at the same time, they have to worry about a bunch of other holes that they need to fill. And it's difficult to say what's more important than the other, you know, because pitching is the most important thing.
Yeah.
But also re-signing DJ is the most important thing. And then also you have guys that get hurt every year. So how do we make sure that when those guys get hurt, we don't lose anything because we don't have the best depth in the league. It's just, there's a lot of decisions that they have to make that normally would probably be a little bit easier, but because of COVID, it makes it even that much more difficult, you know?
This is a lot of concerns, for a world team. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, right.
It is. It is.
Team that's right on the cusp, you know.
Still, a team
but they're
right on
getting
the
Sevy
cusp.
back, and that's pretty much like getting an ace.
Why spend any money anyway? We're getting Sevy back. We're fine. It's all good.
Yep,
that's absolutely. The August 1st press conference from Brian Cashman right there.
Yep, we're all excited for it. So then the last two rumors that were kind of out there that we can briefly discuss were, one, that Domingo Germán is apparently getting rave reviews from people who have seen him pitch. So that might be one of those Severino situations in terms of what they might look at for with their internal things. But there's also some potential for external moves, which includes potentially going to some Japanese postings or things of the sort. What do you guys make of those sort of rumblings and rumors?
I mean, I think Herman, being in the organization, them having some familiarity with him, I would imagine that he's going to be a part of the team unless they think, that he, is a problem, an off the field issue. If they don't think he's, going to be a good citizen for them, then, I would imagine they would move on. But I think he'll be, I don't want to say that he'll be in the rotation, but he's definitely going to be in the mix. As far as, free agent pitchers go, whether it's, the Japanese prospect or any others, I honestly can't tell you what I think about the market because it's just nothing is really happening. So, I don't know what we still don't know what the Yankees are going to be willing or able to spend. If they sign LeMahieu, there's a chance that that's it and that everything else is sort of on the margins. So I kind of want to wait and see a little bit until we get more reports or rumors, or maybe even actually something happens before we can sit here and discuss these are the pitchers that they should target. We kind of know, what they need, but we don't know we have no idea about their financial stuff.
And just to put the point out there, Josh had mentioned a potential Japanese posting. That was for Tomoyuki Sugano, who is a 31-year-old pitcher in Japan right now. The New York posted a story today that allegedly said the Yankees were linked, though if anybody actually read the story, all it said was that this guy was going to get posted this year and that the Yankees could be somebody among 7 other teams who'd be interested in it. And that plays perfectly off of what Josh just said, which is a bunch of rumors and circulating things and, nothing that really has concrete evidence at this point.
Yeah, I think John Morosi as well. I saw a clip on Twitter. He mentioned that the Yankees and probably some West Coast teams, as we know, that are in play for these Japanese guys, are interested in this. So Sugano, I was looking because I don't, as you guys probably maybe you do, but I didn't know that much about him, to be honest. Not like Otani or Tanaka back in the day.
Even Tanaka, yeah.
But Sugano apparently, this is what Morosi had to say. He said Morosi expects some general managers to place Sugano in the class directly below Bauer. I saw that and I was like, wow, that's really high praise. 31 years old. He spent the past 8 seasons posting a 2.34 ERA, 1,216 strikeouts, and 1,362 innings, only 265 walks. 2-time winner of the Sawamura, let me say that again, Sawamura Award, an honor given to the top starting pitcher. So, I mean, we know the case with the Yankees, right? It's kind of hit and miss with these guys. Yeah. Kiyagawa is probably the most –
worst signing in the history of the franchise. We talk about
bad contracts. I mean, what did that guy pitch? Like maybe 10 games in the major leagues, and he was probably the worst pitcher I've seen ever. Like that was just a terrible signing.
It was awful. It was the worst signing.
We have the Hideki Arabu. I always think of the Seinfeld clip or something like that. Hideki Arabu. And then we have Tanaka, of course, that has pitched great. And we didn't have a chance with Otani, but whatever about him.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, this would be an interesting guy. But as Josh was saying, I would like to see the market develop more. Will the Yankees maybe – I think you have to just spend money to post for the guy, right? That's
you have to – it's $20 million.
So – if the Yankees – I mean, the Yankees have one of the best scouting departments, right? Especially when it's in the Caribbean or in Japan. If they really like this guy, maybe I would expect them to post for this guy and just see what they can get with him. I mean, his statistics are really good. But it brings me to the case, though. Would I rather have this guy who has great numbers but hasn't been here? Or would I rather have a guy who I know in Tanaka who's done the job here? Like, I would take them both probably, but if it's one or the other, which guys are you guys headed? Like, would you have one or the other? Would you rather have the sure guy in Tanaka, my little Tanaka, or would you take the risk with Sugano? I mean, what do you guys think?
I mean, I think I would rather have Tanaka.
Yeah,
they're basically the same age, I think.
At this point.
Yeah, and they're the same age, so it's not like this. It's not like Tanaka's this old guy who's over the hill, which may be the case, but Sugano is not a 23-year-old or 24-year-old or however old Tanaka was when he got here. Yeah. That you're like, well, this guy can develop into possibly an all-star or an ace here. You just don't know, and I personally think that the Yankees should not be in the risk-taking stage of team building with the team that they have. They need to I keep saying this every week. They need to just go for it with the guys that they know or think can get it done, right away. Like I said 2 weeks ago and the week before that about starting the season with 2 rookies in the starting rotation, not something I'm interested in doing.
Well, get ready.
In terms of the roller coaster, ride of the development and all that stuff. Not to say that Sugano would be in the same boat because he's definitely more seasoned. Yeah. He's older. He's professional. He's been doing it for a while. But I don't want to deal with the ups and downs of inexperience with a team whose window is shrinking every single day.
The only benefit I can see of going to Sugano over Tanaka would just be, much like when Tanaka got here, there's a learning curve for major league hitters. And if this guy can pitch pretty good and he has good control, that might ultimately pay dividends. But it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And I'm going to take the devil I know, because Tanaka comes here and he dominates, and then he has that elbow injury issue. And thankfully, we know that he is past that. We know what he can do in New York. We know what he can do in the playoffs. And if he is over the hill, then you don't have to invest the $20 million for this guy to get posted to come from Major League to Major League Baseball and then falter because he's got mileage on his arm. And Tanaka had mileage more than anybody. And the fact is, Tanaka was insane in Japan. And I mean, the dude loved to pitch, and he would go out there and he would do what he needed to do to try and win these games. He pitched, I remember when he won that championship right before he came over, he pitched like 3 times on like 7 days rest or whatever it was. So it's like, I'm not always going out there saying, man, these guys are being able to take the best for the body, because they go all out there in Japan, and they're as committed to the Japanese league as the players here are for Major League Baseball. So 31 mileage on your arm is probably the same as what it would be for a 31-year-old here in the majors. So for me, that's what I kind of would think about it. If it was Tanaka versus Sugano, I would go with Tanaka.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I think you hit the nail on the head pretty much with everything. The one thing I would say, and I don't really know if this has any merit, but the posting fee does not count against the luxury tax. So maybe the Yankees would be more willing to do it, just because that's $20 million they can spend that they wouldn't be taxed on later. Whereas with the luxury tax, as we know, the more money they spend for every dollar, the more they're actually charged. So I just throw it out there. I don't know if it holds any weight, but.
You ready? Final points?
So me, and I get technical difficulties where I can't hear you guys.
Well, you didn't have to tell. Nobody knew that. Why'd you bring that up? I appreciate the transparency,
I am transparent with the audience. With this,
you literally did not need to say that.
I know. This is what I do, baby. No, I don't have any final thoughts. Everyone knows my final thoughts. Get Mayu, get Tanaka or.
I didn't mean that. I meant the final thoughts on our discussion. Tanaka.
Oh, I don't know, man. No.
Right, whatever. Mute his mic. Where's the mute button?
We need a producer. I'm kidding.
Yeah, he's checked out for the night.
But, you got to supply that budget. Yeah, it's weird. He's not even working overnights, but he's already checked out. Crazy. I hate to see it. Anyway, those are pretty much our talking points. I thought we had a little bit of fun today on the show, guys. And hopefully, as we get deeper into December, we can get the winter meetings. We can get some more signings. Trevor May happened today with the Mets, but we're not a Mets podcast, so we didn't need to talk about that. And bunch more action. Anything else you guys want to say before I wrap things up here?
Hopefully, with tomorrow being the deadline for tendering contracts, stuff starts to happen this weekend, maybe even later in the week. But we will see. Things move slowly in Major League Baseball.
I agree. So much so that a friend of ours asked, when did free agency start in Major League Baseball?
3 weeks after it started.
That's so funny.
When did it start? And for those of you who don't know, that's an impression of our friend asking about it. And
he's one of the biggest. He's one of the biggest baseball guys, and he didn't even know when it started. That's how slow it's been.
Yeah, it starts 5 days after the World Series ends.
Yep. And so far in the now month and a half that it's been on, nothing has happened. But that's the exciting stuff. And that's what we'll have to see happens after the tendering deadline of tomorrow. So as always, folks, we thank you for tuning in. Each and every episode, and I mentioned this before, can be found on the following platforms and more. We are on Apple Podcast. We are on Spotify. We are on TuneIn. We are on SoundCloud, and we are on YouTube, where you can watch the video so you can see my glorious face and Josh's glorious face and E-Ray's covered face during the course of this podcast. So as always, go to those websites, just search Our Little Yankees Podcast, hit subscribe. You catch up on new episodes, catch up on old episodes, and talk to us. We also have a Twitter account now at Our Lil, L-I-L, Yanks Pod, which
It's
is
a
where
rapper.
you can find us. Yes,
I'm a rapper.
Yanks Pod. It's a rapper. So go and follow us on Twitter and come and have some fun while we tweet and be on social media and talk about the pod and all that good stuff. But until now, folks, say goodbye.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As always, always a pleasure talking to you guys.
Yep, we agree. Talk to you guys later.
One final thing.
Oh,
Joel,
all right.
sorry.
Here we go. What?
Oh, boy.
I'm doing
Did
the
something
wrap-up.
break?
What?
Do we have breaking news or something?
No. Well, you want some breaking news? No,
Is
it's
it
not really
breaking?
breaking news. But Debbie Garcia, in his first outing in Dominican Winter League, 1.2 innings pitched, 1 strikeout, 2 walks, and 34 pitches. Also has blue hair. Also, really quickly, CC Sabathia documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Being released on HBO. We all love CC. Can't wait for that. December 22nd. Take it away for the goodbye. That's all I wanted to get in, baby.
Absolutely. Love it. We will have plenty of time to talk about that. And hey, let's just, as we get closer, maybe we do a watch of the CC doc and we talk about it here on the pod. Worth mentioning, but obviously we have a few weeks before that drops. All right, they already said goodbye, so now I say goodbye to you guys. We'll catch you on the flip side.